Hi, I'm Kelly, and I'm thrilled to be here today with my colleague and partner at Index, Mike Volpi, to celebrate and reflect on Confluent's journey to becoming a publicly traded company. Well, you invested in the relatively early days of the company, Series B, about 2015, I believe it was. What at that time struck you about the business and the team?
The first is that this wasn't a coincidence. The three of them knew that a product like this, a product like Kafka, would be a very significant component of data infrastructure. Yeah. And so they open sourced it with the intent of Sunday starting a company behind it. So it wasn't one of these like, oh, I worked on it and it happened later. They knew what they were doing. I was struck by particularly Jay's kind of thoughtfulness. He's one of these people that you say something, he thinks about it a little bit, and then he responds in a very structured and thoughtful way. So I was very impressed both with their vision, their scrappiness and sort of resourcefulness, and then just like the kind of the humility that came with the whole thing. They were, it was definitely not gold-plated at the time.
And so we hear a lot about Confluent's metrics, and the success of the business that they've built thus far, but we both know that no path to success is linear. Are there any kind of standout challenges that the team faced, and if so, how did they respond?
So many moments where tricky things happen, but probably two that stand out in my mind is, one is when we really had to pivot the company to a software that customers download and self-host to Confluent Cloud, which is the hosted version of the product. And as you know, because you're an engineer and appreciate this, but it's very different to write software versus to run it. And the company really had to develop a brand new skill set. And obviously the product had to be improved, but really a new skill set in terms of running scalable software. And then, the other one that I would say more on the sales side is one of the advantages that open source companies have is that they have pre-existing customers in some way because that open source project, in this case Kafka, is widely adopted. But at some point you run out of those people because you're basically flipping those people into paying customers in the beginning. You run out of them. And then you have to develop your own marketing muscle. You have to develop your own sales muscle to find de novo, new customers that were not previous adopters of the open source project. And that, on the sales side and the marketing side, that was a big transition. That means changing some people, new processes, new structures. So those two were big, tough transitions, and steady leadership across those because they weren't at some points not going as well as we had hoped for them to. Were definitely kind of interesting, shaky moments in the company.
Thinking about Confluent in the broader context of open source and the open source industry, how has the company changed the industry to date?
Open source 10 years ago was a business model where you had a popular piece of software, you went to your customers and you said, we can help you support it, pay us something every month and we'll support that software for you. That was the business model. Fundamentally, that was a small model. It didn't translate into some of the more impressive companies in the industry. If you fast forward that today, the path that Confluent has blazed is to transform basically that business model into a cloud-hosted, like a SaaS business. And that transformation is something that, we have a bunch more open source investments in our own portfolio, and then there's a lot of others in the industry, but the Confluent model is one that everybody else is trying to emulate right now.
Do you have any predictions for where this industry will evolve, as the company and the space progress?
Yeah, look, I think the big theme that we talked about earlier before is this idea that businesses' most important asset is their data, right? And what Confluent and other members of this open source ecosystem are doing is they're providing the tools, the picks and shovels that businesses can use to harness the power of their data. That's really at the heart of it what they do. And the power of this industry that's being created by companies like Confluent is to give the tools to companies to make data their most important asset. And it doesn't matter if you're an airline where you have airplanes or a hotel chain or a logistics company like Federal Express, your most critical asset is your data. And Confluent is giving you the ability to make better business decisions, to respond in real time, to price things, to collect assets in a way better way because of that. And that will have a massive transformative effect to the overall industry.
So what can current and future entrepreneurs learn from Jay and the Confluent journey?
Especially for founders that are also CEOs of companies, the evolutionary journey from being sort of technical architect, technical genius, which Jay was and still is, but to being a leader of people. I think that's the biggest journey that Jay has been through. What I really respect about them, and what I wish every founder can think about, is how to be your own leader, how to use your own style, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you're verbose or you're taciturn and you're more of a thoughtful person. But there's many different styles of leadership, and what I really respect about him has been this journey of from technical founder to leader. And that, I think, if that lesson could be taught to many, many people, I think it would be enormously beneficial.